Hello and welcome to another pen video from me, Penultimate Dave. So I have here another inks comparison video, and this is Diamine inks comparison number 12. So I think with that, let's go and swab up some of these inks. So I get a lot of questions on how I do these ink videos. So I decided I would add this to the front of each of the ink videos. I put links in the descriptions, but I know some of you watch this on TVs or mobile devices, so you don't get to see this. So first off, the paper is the number one question I get asked. What paper do I use for these ink comparison videos? So this is the original Tomoe River. This is 52 GSM, and it is the white, not the cream, the white. Where possible, I try to go for the white because the cream can actually change the color of the ink just a little bit. So this is Tomoe River 52 GSM in the white. A lot of people get confused as well because I have what looks to be a grid on this page, and it's actually an Oxford Optik pad. These are the pads that I actually use when I'm writing my writing samples for pen reviews or in my currently ink. So they have these little squares up here. I just use that because it's a good guide for me when I put this very thin sheet of Tomoe River over. I can actually see squares, so it helps me write a little bit sort of straight on the page. Not always, but sometimes it does. The other thing that I also have is I have a bottle of water, plain water, and I dip my nib in here. So for consistency, I use the same fountain pen, or I guess it's not a fountain pen, it's using a fountain pen nib though. This is a 3D printed pen from William Shakour in the UK. So he prints this material 3D, and it has a number 8 size Bock nib which I can unscrew, and you can see there. So it is just a dip pen holder for a number 8 size Bock nib, and the idea is I want to have consistency with the writing sample. So I use this, I dip it in the ink, I write, and then I will dip it in here and I will rinse the nib off several times and I will dry it, and then at that point I will then go on to do the next ink swatch and the next writing sample. So there you have it. That's how I do my ink swatches. So I just wanted to show you that here. Now on to the ink comparison video. So the first ink we're going to compare today is Diamine Vermillion, and we'll do an ink swatch. And you can see this is a very, very lovely vermilion colour. And this is the first time I'm actually using this ink. You can see it's getting a little bit dry towards the end. I'm going to do a second pass. The second pass basically allows me to compare what a wet versus a dry nib would look like. So that just gives a little bit more of a variation so that you can see. Now this is Diamine, and it is Vermillion, which is a very nice vermilion coloured ink. It's quite a nice pastel colour. The next ink is Diamine Writer's Blood. So we'll do an ink swatch, and this is certainly an interesting colour ink. I have Diamine Oxblood. I have not tried this ink yet. This is the first time I am trying this on camera, just like the Vermilion. I'm going to do a second pass over the top half just to show the difference between a wet versus a dry nib. And this is Diamine, and it is Writer's Blood, which is an interesting name for an ink. And this is actually I know a lot of people have actually compared this to Diamine Oxblood in the past. I'm not actually seeing that at the moment, but maybe once it's dried, it will look a little bit like Diamine Oxblood. The next ink here is Diamine Violet. So we'll do an ink swatch. And you can see this is a beautiful violet colour here. We'll do a second pass over the top just to try and show the difference between a wet and a dry writing nib. And this is Diamine Violet, which is a very nice violet purple lavender colour ink. There is a Diamine Lavender as well in the Diamine range. This is more, I would say, violet or purple. The next ink is Diamine Majestic Purple. So we'll do another ink swatch here. And this is my favourite Diamine Purple ink. We'll do a second pass over the top here, because typically this ink does sheen quite a bit, or at least I see it in some of my nibs. Not all of the nibs, but some of the more wetter nibs. So this is Diamine, and it's Majestic Purple, which is, for me, a perfect purple ink. There is Diamine Imperial Purple as well, but I still do like Diamine Majestic Purple a little bit more. The next ink is Diamine Wild Strawberry. We'll do an ink swatch. And I have to say that this is one of the Diamine red inks I do like a lot. It's got that sort of crimsony red, but it's also got a tad of orange in it. So I'll do a second pass over the top there. I just want to see if I can get a little bit more sheen out of this ink. I'm not sure if it's an ink that does sheen, but I just want to give that a try. So this is Diamine, and it is Wild Strawberry. But that is a very beautiful ink. I do find it's a little bit similar to Diamine Poppy Red, although I would say it's a little bit more on the pastel side of colour. And then the final ink here is Diamine Apple Glory. So we'll do an ink swatch. And just like Diamine Wild Strawberry, this is quite a punchy green. It's a very nice grassy green colour. So we'll do a second pass over the top here, just to show the difference between a wet and a dry writing nib. So this is Diamine, and it is Apple Glory. But that is a very, very nice green ink. So I think let's now take a look at these inks now that they have dried. So the first ink is Diamine Vermillion. And I'd have to say that this has actually turned out to be a completely different colour ink than what I was expecting. This is, to me, a little bit more on the pink side of things. So you can see quite a lot of difference between a wet versus a dry writing nib. There is a little bit of shading around the pulled edges of that ink. In terms of sheen, is there any sheen there? No, there is not. The writing sample, though, is a little bit more darker, though. But still, I would say that that is bordering on a pink ink. It's just Vermilion I always think as being a more brighter red and not a pink ink. So that does definitely look pink to me. The next ink is Diamine Writer's Blood, and again, this is another ink that this is the first time that I have inked this up or done an ink swatch. You can definitely see a difference between the wet versus a dry writing nib. There is a fair amount of shading going on there, certainly around the edges of that pooled area of ink. The writing sample, though, is very dark. This is a wet writing nib, so that's the reason why you're seeing it this colour. Now, in terms of sheen, is there any sheen there? Yes, there is. It's very subtle, just around the pooled edges there of that ink. I don't know if I can get that on camera there, but it is very, very, very subtle. So although this ink does sheen, it isn't sheening a huge amount. So if you're after a sheening ink, then maybe Diamine Writer's Blood isn't the ink for you. Now, I know a lot of people compare this to Diamine Ox Blood, and I don't see the direct comparison here, but I haven't got Oxblood side by side. Maybe I'll do that in another video. Let me know if you do want to see the difference there, and if there are any other inks that are close that you would like to see the difference on. The next ink here is Diamine Violet, and this is an ink that I do like writing with a lot. Diamine Lavender I typically prefer a little bit more. You can see a slight difference between a wet and a dry writing nib. The wet writing nib here is actually, the writing sample is actually more to how I normally see it on a page. Now, there is very little shading going on there. If I try to show you here the sheen, there is some sheen. There's some very subtle sort of goldish sheen going across the whole of that ink swatch, but it doesn't stand out massively. So it is sheening, it's just, it seems to want to sheen a little bit more. It's just not able to sheen enough. The next ink is Diamine Majestic Purple, and this is my favourite purple ink. And the reason why I like this is that it is a dark purple. You can see here from the writing sample that this is quite a dark purple. You don't see a huge amount of difference between a wet versus a dry writing nib though. So the colour seems to be fairly uniform throughout. You do get a huge amount of shading though, and that's one thing I like about this ink. And you do get a little bit of gold sheen. Not a huge amount though, but you can typically see it around the edges here of that where the ink pooled on the page. Now, if you want a sheening purple from Diamine, then I would certainly say Diamine Imperial Purple typically sheens more. Diamine Purple Rain and Diamine Skull and Roses as well. So they are more higher sheening inks. But I do have a soft spot for Diamine Majestic Purple. The next ink is Diamine Wild Strawberry, and you really can see a difference here between what would be the wet versus the dry writing nib. You can see a wet writing sample here, and it is more of a darker red. I would almost say that this wetter area is a little bit more darker, but also pastel, whereas this one's a little bit more, I'd say strawberry actually, a brighter red. Now, there is some shading going on here around the pooled areas of the ink. Now, in terms of sheen, yes, there is gold sheen around the edges of the pooled area. It's not over the whole ink swatch, it's just around the edges. So you can get some sheen out of this ink. But again, it's not a high sheening ink. It's never been designed to be one. So you will get some sheen out of it, but just not a huge amount. And then the last ink here is Diamine Apple Glory. And this is really one of my favourite green inks. It's a very punchy, vibrant, almost neon green, but not quite. You can see the difference between a wet and a dry writing nib there. You can see a huge amount of shading, especially in the wetter area of this ink swatch. So the shading is quite nice. The writing sample, though, is a more darker green. And then if we have a look at the sheen, is there any sheen on the ink there? I'd have to say no. It's close, but it's not close enough. So I'd say that there isn't any sheen on that Apple Glory. So there you have it. That's my Diamine inks comparison video, and this is number 12. If there are any of these inks that you like, let me know in the comments below. If there are other similar inks that you do like to these, do let me know in the comments below as well. So that's my Diamine inks comparison video number 12. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next pen video. Bye bye.